that clap thing?
I'll do that clap thing. It's like a pre-ritual thing that that I just started.
Yeah, I noticed. I was like, oh, all right, that's a thing.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right, ladies.
All right, guys. This is Erick Prince, aka the Minority Nomad. We're here in Bangkok, Thailand, and I'm with my man Forrest Lee.
Yeah, this guy hijacks everything. All right, that's a good start. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with my good friend Erick Prince. I met him over a year ago. He's actually one of my good friends over here. He's been here for what, 10 plus years? Or
no, eight years.
Eight.
Yeah, 8 years.
So he's been, you'd say you're an old timer, right? Would you?
I'm an old head.
Or are you still considered young compared to some of the OGs out here?
Yeah, it depends on if we're talking about digital nomads or expats. Expats, I'm young. But
I think with more, half and half, like digital nomad expats.
I'm somewhere in the middle. I'm somewhere in that middle space, yeah.
Okay, so he's not too young, but not too old. You're right there in the middle.
Yeah.
You know, ever since moving out here about maybe a little over a year and a half, just come across with different expats and digital nomads. I came across Erick and his story. We both served in the military. Erick was in the Air Force, I was in the Army, so we bonded off of that. We love training and working out, and he's also part of the digital nomad space. You're a travel journalist.
Yep.
Correct. How many years have you been doing travel journalism?
I'd say about a decade.
A decade?
Yeah. So around 2012 is when I left the U.S.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Okay. So right now in this video, I'm very curious to hear Erick's experiences as a travel journalist and as a, you know, according to your handle, Minority Nomad, the Black American experience, living in this digital nomad world, living as an expat here in Bangkok, Thailand, and some of the successes, failures, and challenges that you go through from your personal experiences as a Black man living overseas as an expat. So without further ado, I want to hear Erick's story. And Erick, you know, can you give us a quick intro of like where you grew up, high school, joining the military, and eventually all your education that led you into pursuing this career path as a travel journalist?
Okay. As you said, I'm Erick Prince, Minority Nomad. I've lived here in Bangkok, Thailand. I never call it Bangkok, Thailand. I only do it because of you. I just call it Bangkok.
Gotta be specific.
I've lived here, all those Bangkoks in the world.
Yeah.
But I've lived here in Bangkok for 8 years. And when I say lived here, it's been my base. As a travel journalist, before the C word happened, I was on the road for about 7 months a year. So I really was never in Bangkok that often. So I would say like now, as of like the C word, this is home. You know, I spend in my space where I live. I'm investing in more businesses here, so this is my forever home now, officially. Before that, I was bouncing between Europe and here. So I had a base in Berlin, here. Had a base in Budapest, here. Bucharest, here, basically all the B's, right? So before that, go all the way back. I grew up in Cleveland. Actually, most people think I'm from Texas because I claim Texas, but Texas just happened to be where I called home as an adult and where I ended up being stationed. I was the eldest son of 10 children to a single mom.
Damn.
Yeah, my mom, you calling my mom a hoe, bro?
No, I'm saying that's like my grandparents, that's our grandparents' generation. My grandparents had 12 kids.
Like our entire family, like you go to a family reunion, there's hundreds of cousins. Like, we're a very, very big family. Everybody has a lot of children in our family. And it was really interesting because growing up, and my grandfather had a farm. So even though I grew up in Cleveland as a city boy, during school breaks, I was on the farm. So that's kind of where I got the hard work ethic that I have that eventually translated into the military. I was actually going to go into the Army. I was in ROTC for 4 years at Shaw High School in East Cleveland. And it was a foregone conclusion I was going to join the military. You know, life happens, and I ended up joining the Air Force.
Why'd you choose the Air Force over
because
the Army?
They paid a shit ton better when it came to bonuses. Like when I signed up, I did my first contract was a 6-year contract. I got to pick my job. Army wouldn't let me pick my job, even though I crushed the ASVAB test. The Army was like, I mean, you get what you get, and I'm like, nah, I'm good. The Air Force just had a way better offer.
Yeah.
So they said I can go into aerospace engineering, and I'll get a $30,000 sign-in bonus and a six-year contract. And I was planning to be a lifer anyway, so that was an easy yes for me. So I was a C-130 crew chief and eventually became a flying crew chief on the C-130s. But I joined in January 2001, and then 9/11 happened. So even though I was trained as a crew chief, I was young and a marksman. And I don't know if you guys had this in the Army, but I was a marksman in basic training.
Yeah.
So if you were young, single, and a marksman, you ended up getting augmented out to security forces, AKA MP. So I would deploy and be in the desert with Army units, and then I would come home and I would volunteer for the next rotation as a crew chief.
And MP is military police, if you guys don't know what that
or
is.
SF, security forces,
Security
which
forces.
is the Air Force version of that. So I was in the military for about 10 and a half years. And at around 8 years, I knew I was done. I was just exhausted because you got to remember, I was there. What year did you go in?
I came in 2011.
Yeah, so, yeah, as you were coming in, I was on my way out.
So obviously you were at the height of the global war.
I was at the
on
height
terror,
of the war.
height of the
Yeah.
GWATs, deployments, train up,
Yeah.
leave, cycle.
Yeah, 5 rotations over my career, like OEF, OIF.
How long were your deployments between Iraq and Afghanistan?
Like 6
6
months each. Yeah. That was good. That was an interesting thing about the Air Force versus the Army. I would fly in. I would, make friends with the Army unit guys. I would fly out and I'd be home for 6-7 months, and I'd come back and the guys were still there. I hadn't go home yet.
Yeah, because back then it was 12 to 15 month deployments,
Yeah.
and then they scaled from 15 to 8.
Yeah. Air Force, like we were rarely gone more than 6 months. A lot of guys didn't do longer than 6 month rotations then. So after I was done with the Air Force, I went back to the University of Texas to finish up my degrees where I was studying my master's degrees. And
On the GI Bill.
yeah, oh man, I use every single. There was when I first joined the military, I had a supervisor who told me, get every piece of paper from them because they're going to get every drop of blood from you. So it was my mentality from the beginning of my career is to get every certification, every degree, every single thing I could get out of the military because they were going to bleed me dry.
Facts.
Right?
Yeah.
So all my degrees were paid for. I haven't spent a dime on education outside of photography stuff.
Good.
So once I finished up, everything was like, what's the next step, right? And when I was studying government, I was specializing in the impact of government legislation on minority communities, being African American and Latino. My father's Puerto Rican, my mother's Black. And I started to see how the system specifically marginalizes low-income communities and minority communities and women, right? So I lost faith in the country. Once I'd already served a decade in the military and saw what we were doing overseas. And then once I started to actually research the very real history of the United States, not just the history, but what's actually happening now on legislation that's being passed, I was just over it. I was done. This isn't for me. So I wanted to give back to the community. I want to give back to kids that were like me, a 12, 13-year-old version of myself. So what I did was I started this little foundation to teach kids about travel and photography, the two things that saved me. I've been a photographer since I was 13.
This is during your bachelor's education?
Yeah, this was when I was studying at the University of Texas.
Okay.
And, everything, this is fast forwarded. I couldn't come up with the money as far as grants, loans to fund the foundation. I wanted to take 5 low-income kids, pair them with a mentor, and go overseas and show them the world, teach them street photography in the field. We could not come up with the money because so many organizations didn't understand what we were trying to do. They thought it was just a tour. Like, oh, okay, you're just taking kids abroad. Like, no, we're offering mentorship. We're offering skills, as in photography and storytelling. We're helping the next generation of young, low-income kids be able to tell their story. Because a lot of people complain about the representation of our community. The problem is there aren't that many people in our community with the skills to tell our story.
Yeah.
So that's what I wanted to do. Companies weren't having it.
Promoting more Black artists, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, not just black. It was anybody marginalized. Like a lot of people look, when I talk about marginalization, I do not talk about it from a black perspective. I happen to be black, that's my perspective.
Yeah.
But I have people who are women who are marginalized, LGBTQIA people who are marginalized, like Asians who are marginalized. So this was for everybody. And and kind of the lens that I was working through was socioeconomic position and status. People say money doesn't make you happy, but it sure as fuck makes life a lot easier.
Hell yeah, it does.
Right? Yeah. So these people who are in a lower socioeconomic position, if you give them the tools and the means to bring themselves up and bring themselves out, then that's a shit ton better than just giving somebody a check. in my opinion. So that's what we were trying to do. We kept getting no's, and I tend to be stubborn. One of the things that I learned in the military was you just find a solution. Yeah, here's the problem, but you find the solution. You don't bitch and moan about it. You just find the solution. And for me, I was like, you know what? I'm going to show you how important this is. So I booked a one-way ticket to London, and I've been on the road ever since.
When was your first experience coming into Thailand?
It was 2013. It was.
Can you walk me through like how?
Oh, I'll tell you the
landing
exact story. I'll
yes.
tell you the exact story. I was with my sister, kissing. So back then, even now, I had a tendency to just do shit, right? And we were in Budapest. And this is actually when me and my sister, my best friend, but I call her my sister. This is when we first met. I'll never forget. I walked in a hostel and she was crying because somebody had robbed her. They stole her laptop, everything, right?
Damn.
And you know, me being me, I helped her out. I let her use my phone. I let her call home, organize everything, do her bank stuff. Sweet, right? We became instant best friends at that point. Then I was like, this is March. And this happens to be one of the coldest Marches on record in Europe at the time. So I decided to go to Shini thermal baths because that's what you do when you go to Budapest. And I went, and it was one of the most amazing experiences I had ever had. Like watching the steam come off the thermal baths as the snow fell, it is magical. People talk shit. It is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
I've seen videos and pictures of it. I want to try that.
Bro, being there, it's really, truly magical.
Yeah.
So the very next day after that, I got sick. I was very, very sick. And it turned out it was strep throat from being out in the elements and, you know, drinking all night and barely sleeping in the hostel.
Yeah.
And the doctor was like, you need to stay in, stay warm. And I'm like, fuck, I'll just go somewhere warm. And I booked a one-way ticket to Bangkok.
And you just
literally
few blogs.
Yeah, barely. And I booked a one-way ticket, boop, boop, and landed here in Bangkok. And I instantly fell in love with this city.
Yeah. What was your first impression of, coming into
beautiful
Bangkok?
chaos, bro? Beautiful chaos. So I'm a photographer and I have ADD. And the way my brain works is for me to stay stimulated, things need to be moving. Like that's why I hate the beach. Like this shit is boring to me. I hate it. And it's like, but if you put me in the middle of Sukhumvit or Siloam or Lad Prao or anywhere, you put me in Tokyo or New York or London or Berlin, it's so exhilarating and exciting to me because there's always something to see, something to do, something to observe, something new happening. Bangkok, there's very few places in the world that can even come close to that energy in Bangkok. Maybe Delhi, but it was just everything about it, the sights and the sounds, the energy. And when you go from the US to Europe, and mind you, I used to live in Japan. I was stationed in Japan and Korea when I was in the military. But they were very sterilized. They were very Western,
yes.
Right? Bangkok is not sterilized at all, especially a decade ago. Like, it was just a raw energy and a beauty to it that I had not seen anywhere else. And I kept coming back. And the funny thing is, people always ask me why I chose Bangkok, and I'll probably do a video about this one day, is because I just feel comfortable here. Like, I land in Savanapum, and I feel like I'm home. Like, I smell orchids, and I hear traffic, and I see people, and I hear Thai, and I taste lemongrass. Like, that's home for me. Like that taste, you know that food that you grew up eating?
Yes.
And it just, no matter what, it goes back, it's lemongrass for me.
That's
my
lemongrass.
taste.
There's plenty of lemongrass all over Thai cuisine.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of organized chaos, the friendly Thai people, the amazing Thai food and culture.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's like a variety of, digital nomads, backpackers. You got your rich entrepreneurs. You got the local Thais. It's different. Would you say it's all those different varieties and senses that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Went together?
It's Bangkok is one of the most, and mind you, as you notice, I'm specifically saying Bangkok.
Yeah.
I adore Bangkok very specifically. If Bangkok wasn't in Thailand, I wouldn't be living in Thailand. Like if Bangkok was somewhere else, that's where I'd be. It's the city specifically because it's a place where you can be whatever you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
It's you can blend right in and nobody even notices you. Like you're not ostracized, you're not treated differently. And the city treats you the way you treat the city.
Yeah.
If you move with respect, compassion, energy, that's exactly what you'll get back. If you're a dickhead and a clown, that's what the city's going to give back to you.
When you're saying being treated, in my travels, I don't come across too many black travelers, period. So can you tell me about your experiences as, let's say living here, as a black man versus living, back in the States, and contrasts and comparisons of it?
Yeah. I mean, this is a tricky topic because I tend to shy away from this, because one of my biggest issues with the whole diversity and travel movement, or the black travel movement, is everything we focus on our blackness before anything else. The world doesn't necessarily look at us that way. I'm American first. When I'm abroad, when I open my mouth, I am American first. I present as American. You would not confuse me with a Nigerian.
Yes.
Right? So my passport privilege comes before anything else. So that opens so many more doors. Now, granted, if you have this conversation with somebody who's continental African, it's going to be a totally different conversation than most honest Americans, American-born African Americans. So for me, when, let's say, and let's talk generally, abroad versus living in the U.S., because I'm approaching that point when I've lived abroad quite a good portion of my life now.
Yeah.
The United States of America is the most racist place I've ever been in my life, and I've been in 95 countries.
Yeah.
I lived in 8. It's not even close,
Yeah.
right? There's no place in the world that I felt more uncomfortable as a black man than in the United States of America.
Because recently you've gone back home this year and last year.
Yep.
You know.
Terrible. Last year, I filmed an entire 25-minute video about how angry and heartbroken I was last summer when I went back to the U.S. I was home for a month. I was just furious. But I decided not to post it because I'm trying to move with love and kindness. Then I went back recently. I was there for, 11 days? I was in Memphis and then Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
There's no equation that would ever get me back to the United States. And I've decided to dedicate the rest of my career to get as many people outside of the U.S. as possible.
Why do you think that's?
Because it's a shit show.
I mean, is it like culture, is society?
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's really everything. Like, I once upon a time, it was like, oh, okay, so there's issues with racism, homophobia, xenophobia. There's these issues in the U.S., but those are treatable, right? You can address those things directly. But when I went home, it was more of an overall culture of negativity. And it appears to me that there's been a conscious effort to destabilize the U.S. in a way that makes it so easy to control people. When people are angry, they're stupid. And they make stupid choices and painful choices. And I don't want to be anywhere near that. I don't want to be anywhere near people making stupid and painful choices, because it usually turns into something violent, because we already have a culture of violence in the U.S. It's our greatest export, historically speaking. We fuck people up. Our job in the military, both of us, was to kill people and break their shit.
People want to talk about very PC culture of what's the job in the Army or in the military in general. Your main job is to kill, or if you're in a job, you support the ones that kill.
No, your job is to kill people and break their shit.
Yeah.
I don't care what job you have in the military. That is your job, because you support that mission.
Yeah.
And that's what our mission in the military always was. And I get it. I totally understand it. Everybody, oh, you think you're the world police? It's because we are the world police. It just is what it is. But, I digress, my friend. Back to the conversation around blackness and abroad. So when I show up at a place, I'm American first and black second. And the good thing about the way media has spun around the world is a lot of the imagery outside of the U.S. Of black people are of entertainment. Michael Jackson, everybody knows him. LeBron James, everybody knows him. Michael Jordan, everybody knows him. Barack Obama, people love Obama around the world. It's insane. Beyonce, Serena Williams, Will Smith. Black culture and music and identity is everywhere, and people want to feel that, embrace it. They want to touch it, because, like you said earlier, it's very rare to run into an African American in a lot of places around the world, especially once you get out of Europe. Most African Americans travel to Europe or Mexico,
South
Central
America,
America-ish. Not even South America, Central America-ish. You get a lot of us go down to Panama, Costa Rica, but further south, maybe Brazil. You run to a lot of us, Colombia sometimes, but mainly Europe and the Caribbean. Let's go with the Caribbean, right? Come to Asia, you're not running into a lot of brothers and sisters out here. It's been an explosion here in Bangkok over the last, say, 4 or 5 years, where I'll see a brother or sister I'm not at all surprised now in Bangkok. But outside of Bangkok, it's still kind of a shock. I would say I have my quality of life as a black man is significantly better abroad than it is in the United States. And I would say there are very few people of color that I've met who have the opportunity to stay abroad and live abroad who go back home, unless they have to, family reasons, they want to settle down, better job offer. But most of us decide to stay abroad because it's just a better quality of life.
Acceptance, none of the bullshit back home.
Yeah, not necessarily. Now, let me pull back on the acceptance.
Yeah.
It's not about acceptance. People just don't fuck with us. There's a difference between that.
Yeah.
For example, there's still plenty of Thai women that won't date me because I'm black.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of Thai households I'll never be invited into because I'm black.
So those are a few challenges of being black living here in Thailand.
Kind of, but I wouldn't even call it a challenge. I don't want to be in that house anyway. I don't want to date that person anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah,
They
so,
don't like it,
there's a difference. There's a difference there. Because if somebody doesn't fuck with you because of the color of your skin, okay, mazel tov, walk away, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, in the US, for example, people go out of their way to abuse you and oppress you and attack you. There's a difference there. It's like if...
Yeah, it's like for me, growing up, some random guy would call me a chink.
Exactly.
And then they would just drive off.
Yeah, or let's go to the extreme. Little Asian women being attacked.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen to us abroad.
No.
It just does not happen. It's such an American thing that it's just baffling to me how anybody can still defend our nation in terms of how marginalized people are treated. So when people talk about, say, Thailand being racist, Thailand's homogenous. That's what it is. There's a difference there. And because a Thai person doesn't want to, fuck you because you're a certain color, trust me, you get the same thing as a Chinese person. Like, there are Thai people who don't fuck with Chinese people. There are Thai people who don't fuck with Indian people. There's black people who don't fuck with Chinese people. And it's just the way it is. But the difference is, are you being outwardly oppressed and abused and attacked?
Definitely not.
It's not happening here. It's not happening. And honestly, a lot of doors have just opened just because I'm black. Like, the little, people call them microaggressions. I say, it's just life, right? They go, oh, my nigga. And I'm like, what's up, man? I don't want to say that. But it's from a place of pop culture.
Yes.
Right? A lot of the things that I experience are based on pop culture. And me being a decent sized guy, especially, I don't know why Thai men like to grab my muscles. They just
it's because you're quite the muscular.
Whatever. They're like, oh, big man.
You mentioned that, for the past 4 years, black travelers have come over here and settled over here because, they don't get fucked with. They're more accepted out here. Mm-hmm. But however, there's still what are some, if you can even call them challenges, compared to what you experienced living here for 8 years versus going back home or versus back home? I think there has to be some challenges.
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest challenges that a lot of people are going to have, and a lot of people, literally daily, I get dozens of messages through various channels about living here, right? It's going to be making a living. Especially because I think it's different. So, Chris, retired worker for you, he was phenomenal. He's probably, in my opinion, he might be the best Bangkok or Thailand life vlogger right now, right? Yeah. But Chris is 50 plus. He's retired and he's married. So for us, we're in our 30s, we're single, we're dating, we're working, we're making a living. So when people come to us for advice, we have to talk to them about employment or making a living or things like that. That's going to be by far the biggest drawback to here is how do you make money here? If you're a digital nomad or you're working on your laptop, yeah, sure. That's simple, but it's not for everybody. If you don't have that skill set, what do you do when you come here? So a lot of people become English teachers.
That don't pay that well.
That A, don't pay that well, and B, some people should not be teaching English.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a skill set for everybody, right? So what do? You can't work at a Subway. You can't work in construction. You can't, there's so many drawbacks to employment here, right? That would be number one. Number two is the lack of culture, of our culture. Not Thai culture is amazing, but if you're somebody who needs to be around your own culture, it's a problem here. It's very difficult to find black culture necessarily. You have a few hip hop spots, but they're generic trash. They suck. Except for Sway. I love Sway.
I was going to mention Sway.
I love Sway. Sway. By the way, Sway is a phenomenal hip hop spot. It's a brilliant, best DJs in the city by far. And if you, for example, we have Brothers and Sisters of Thailand group, and a lot of tourists go in and out of there, right? And a lot of us expats have left the group because tourists are looking for one thing versus expats or looking for something separate. Thailand is a very different place when you visit as opposed to when you live here.
I agree.
Right? So now, tourists, for the most part, they don't have to figure out how to get around in floods. They don't necessarily have to figure that out. We have to do it every single year for 3 to 4 months.
Especially during this time.
Especially during right now. We blessed to got a good day, but it's humid as heck. Like, tourists don't have to figure out how to deal with police shakedowns, for example.
Yes.
Like, necessarily, some do. But
have you gone through police shakedowns randomly? All the time?
All the time. Like, but you got to remember where we live. We live in the Tonglo, Ekamai, on the Prakanone area, where it's very profitable to fuck with foreigners.
Yes.
And people are like, oh, it's because it's not because I'm black, it's because I'm a foreigner in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
And literally, I would say the first 5 or 6 years here, I would engage with the police maybe once a week. Like, not necessarily at checkpoints, but just in different scenarios.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. Every one of those interactions has been largely positive. I remember where we live, there's a bridge right here, and you go out and make a left turn. A lot of people don't remember that they used to have police checkpoints right at that corner. So they would check everybody going past there for their license, their helmet, et cetera, et cetera. And it was specifically targeted at us, at foreigners.
Yeah.
Until the company that owns this property raised hell about it and got them out of there. But I was here, it was me, everybody I'm about to tell you is black, me, my brother, and 3 of my female best friends from back home. It was all of their first times here. And all of us were on motorbikes. And we went around that corner. And like, it looked like the most racist shit you ever saw.
Yeah.
It was like you got 5 black people just standing on the side of the road talking to the police.
Yeah.
But then I was speaking to the police officer. He realized I spoke a little bit of Thai, and he was perfectly okay. And he was just asking, where we're all from, what we're doing here, and just explain to him. And then he was like, oh, okay, have a good day. Make sure you guys have on your helmet. Because we didn't have helmets on.
Yeah.
It was a 100% legal and valid reason to pull us all over.
Gotcha.
And he gave us a warning. He said, this next time, make sure you wear your helmets and go at. Every interaction with the police I've had has been positive here. But as a expat living here, you have to navigate these things. You have to navigate employment. You have to navigate the seasons, the floods. You have to navigate traffic.
Yeah.
You have to navigate social relationships. Really, dating here is a little rough because you don't know if somebody's with you just for the experience or if they're with you for you.
What are some of the challenges of dating as a black man here in Thailand, here in Bangkok?
Well, I think it's less about also Thailand. Thailand is a very big place, right? So dating in Bangkok versus Pattaya versus Chiang Mai versus the islands are going to be all versus Isan are all going to be very different experiences, right? I think for me, as a black man, I come at it from a humanistic perspective, right? I don't necessarily go into relationships thinking that this person is only with me because I'm black. They might be, right? The fetishization thing is very, very real for me. But it's also the same for white guys, the same for Chinese people who date black women in the States, right? So I've never been hung up on this whole anti-fetishization thing that people get hung up on these days. For me, it's, and it's also part of my poly lifestyle. I've explained this before. I'm polyamorous. I participate in BDSM and kink community, which is hyper communication. Everything, we call it over communication. There is no such thing as too much communication in our community, and that translates to my vanilla lifestyle. So when I date somebody, if you're only with me for the dick, okay, cool, great. Like, I need to know that up front, though. It goes back to before I was saying, that one of the biggest things you have to do here is communicate with people. Not only just, boyfriend, girlfriend, but vendors as well, friends that you make, bartenders. You have to communicate with people in a human perspective. Thailand is a place where you get whatever you put out into the world here. If you're cool, if you're compassionate, if you're kind, you lead with love and a smile, that's exactly what you're going to get. But if you come at everything with this skepticism, this anger, this douchebaggery that I see a lot in the expat community here, that's what you're going to get back. Let's talk specifically about black men or men of color. I'd say black men fall in this category, Latino men fall in this category, continental Africans obviously going to black, and Asian men as well.
Yeah.
You have to approach relationships here a little more cautiously because you might get your heart broken. There are instances here in Thailand where you can be madly in love with each other, but because of cultural norms, her father won't accept you. And that it is what it is. Family over anything else.
Yes.
And that's just the way it is in some instances. Now, mind you, things are getting better. I've seen a lot of women buck the family trend and say, yo, it started with white guys, yay, white guys. It started with white guys being the interlopers into Thai culture, and now you're getting a lot of more people of color who are coming in, Japanese, Korean, Indian men, black men, especially in places like Isan and Pattaya. But you have to make sure that those things are clear up front. So if you're actually seriously trying to date somebody, you have to be able to have these conversations like, hey, how would your family feel about me coming to visit or spending the holidays? What does that look like, right? Then you get your answer. Now, if it's like, oh, my family would never accept you, we can never get married because of this, oh, okay, now you know. Now you have that information, you can move forward. If you want to stay with her for 20 years, cool, but you know the fact, right? If you want to stay with her for 20 days, like, oh, this is only going to be physical, never going to go somewhere, you have that information, right? That is something that's very, and again, it's not just unique to black men. I've got a couple white friends who've dealt with this as well, but it's especially high for black men. Specifically as a black man, especially if you look like you're African, in Bangkok, people are going to think you're a criminal.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a high percentage of continent Africans who are here selling drugs and pimping.
I think we've had a pretty long interview. We've got a lot of good value. This
so.
is fantastic. I'm glad we covered a wide range of topics. Do you have any last words?
Yeah, man. Just leave the world better than you found it, man. That's how I approach everything. I think I try to make somebody smile or laugh every day that I didn't know. And I come from a place of love and positivity. I know your comment sections be getting spicy a little bit, but I'm just gonna tell the guys, yo, if you need anything, reach out to me. I answer every comment, every email on my channel. I'll come over to your channel when this is posted and show love where I can. But I try to lead with love, energy, positivity. Work on yourself. If you need any tips or recommendations for any kind of self-help or transition books that I absolutely adore, I'll be more than willing to share those. And thank you. Like I was saying before, man, you're the man. Like you've done the work more so than a lot of vloggers and social media influencers here in Thailand who show up for 2 fucking weeks and then start making videos talking about what it's like to be here. But you've been here a long time. You've explored this country. You've dove into the language. You've dated here locally, and you've done the work, man. So I look forward to seeing what comes out of this. And anytime you need anything, I'm easy to find, bro.
Absolutely. Thanks, man.
Yeah, of course, man.
So I'm going to leave all of Erick Prince, aka Minority Nomad's links in the description down below. His Instagram, his Twitter, his website. Feel free to contact him, ask him any questions. Anything you want to caveat to that?
No, that's it, man. As usual, lead the world better than you found it, man. And I'm easy to find.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys watching. Love you guys. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace. Good stuff, man.